Well, my memories are a little bit indistinct in that I don't remember a lot of specific events. I do recall early auctions, the early lobster fest auctions, going back to when we first tried to do this in the curling rink in Spruce Grove. I recall Charter Night, the original charter of the club in 1993. The sort of provisional president, Jerry Levasseur, and then our first president, Ken Zender, sort of took the club through the process with the Mayfield Club in Edmonton of getting the club organized, teaching it how meetings are held, what our relationship was to Rotary International in the district, which was quite a learning curve because you start off with a group of people who, some of whom know each other and some of whom are new, but you start the process of sort of organizing those people into a group, and then you have to connect them to a wider organization. And some people had Rotary experience in that original group of, I think it was about 22 people. Some of those people had been Rotarians in other places or with other clubs, but most were not. Most of them were new to Rotary as an organization, so we all learned this stuff together. Sort of big, memorable project we tackled were the Habitat houses, one in Spruce Grove and one in Stony Plain. It was a big commitment for a couple of reasons. One is that it involved the Stony Plain Club as well, so there was sort of the combined efforts of both clubs. It meant a different way of organizing a project than what we'd normally done, but it also meant a much bigger fundraising commitment than we'd ever made before. It required us to commit to what for us was a lot of money over a longer period of time. And that project came along at a time when the auction had been going for a few years. We'd kind of gotten the hang of what the auction could do, what sort of revenue it could generate, that we could count on it if it was run in a particular way. So it was time for us to sort of step out a little bit and start on these projects that had a bigger scope. So, I mean, we did Rotary Park. I think that was mostly in Jeanette Fuhr's year. So it was getting that organized, getting the arrangement with the city of Spruce Grove in place. Not so much the work. Constructing the Rotary building itself was also, I think, something that many of us would have memories of because it took a long time and it required all hands to be involved, but some people had skills, building trade skills that were useful and others didn't, but everybody had to do something, whether it was laying bricks for the sidewalk or cleaning up the grounds. There was always something to do. And of course that was a project that went on for a long time. Alan Polwich sort of took over and made sure that it got finished off, made sure that things were done. So building the building and getting the chamber in there was part of it, but finishing it off was a big job, and Alan was certainly took that for a long time. The first house was built in Spruce Grove. The second house was built in Stony Plain, and it was in year 2, the second house that was during my year. So I think it goes back to '98 probably for the first house, because they were built, I think, in consecutive summers. As I recall, might have been a year apart there because we had quite a chore finding qualified people to move in and working with the details with Habitat, because this was a new sort of a collaboration for them as well. As a group is sort of the combination of everyone's skills and efforts, and I think everybody contributes what they have, what they have available to them. And for some people it's speaking or writing or organizing. It's the blood donor clinic, and it's the people who organize the cleaning of the ditches every year. I mean, there's no shortage of jobs to do, and it takes a whole bunch of people to contribute to each individual job. The things that you learn is that people become passionate about different parts of Rotary. So some people are passionate about the local service projects, so the playground at the sports fields, or Rotary Park. The skate park was another project that we did in Spruce Grove, contributing to the trail system that hasn't worked out so well. Some people are more passionate about international projects, Ecuador or donations. Some of them are passionate about the sort of emergency relief things that we get involved with as a club from time to time. My particular passion was the international exchange program. We started early on in, and I'm going to say 1995 or so, 1996 perhaps, bringing students in. Al Bergsma, also an early president, was very instrumental in that. But I had been exposed to international exchange students that the Stony Plain Club had had a year or two before we did. And it struck me as being a very valuable program, both in terms of the kids you send out, but also the kids you get back in. So I think our first student, if I remember correctly, was from Belgium. And very early on, we got an exchange student from Japan. Her name was Miki Suganome. And she was from Sapporo, and she lived with us, with our family, for a few years, or for a few months, not a few years. And in the course of that, we got to know her family a little bit, and our kids then traveled to Japan to visit her and her family, then to live in Japan for a while. And over a period of time, either we've been to Sapporo or they've been to Stony Plain, and it, in our view, demonstrated the value of this. And there are other Rotarians who have long-term relationships with other exchange students over the years. These are remarkable kids. We've also got a relationship with kids that we set out from our community and that have come back and are either living or working in the community or in the vicinity. And so we have some sense of the impact that these exchange programs have on kids from our community, but also on the impact that these kids who we bring to our homes had on our families and our club. So it was the best. That falls into two categories. One is sort of a general understanding of the value of service. My family was used to the idea that I was a volunteer in various capacities, not just with Rotary, but with others as well. And so that's an example that they've understood from a very young age. They're volunteers themselves. Quite extensively, and I think they will be all their lives. It's a culture of volunteering that you create in your family, a family dynamic. The second thing that we got out of it as a family was a lifetime relationship with another culture that resulted directly from the exchange program, a family in Japan that we established a relationship with when this girl was an inbound exchange student with us. Maintained contact with her and her family for the better part of 20 years now, almost 20 years. And one of my children went and lived in Japan for 4 years after that student was living with us. My other son has also traveled in Japan, and as has my wife and I. So it's a part of the world that we were exposed to, that we've never been exposed to otherwise. Things that we learned that we would not have otherwise learned. And I think it affects how you view other cultures in general, not just Japanese cultures or Asian cultures, but international, how you relate to people, what the sorts of questions that you ask them, or things that interest you about their lives are different when you've had an exchange student sit at your table and ask you questions about your culture, and ask you questions about your histories and your your beliefs and why you do things the way that you do. You look at your own culture differently, and you certainly look at their culture differently as a result of having known them. So, from my perspective, the exchange program was the most important thing we did, the most valuable thing we did, certainly for me and my family, but I just think it was important to the club as a whole. A couple of things. One is that opportunities for service come at us at a rate that we can't possibly sustain. We do a lot of things, and the club is asked to do a lot of things and could consider doing even more things than it does. But the problem is that it diffuses you. It waters you down, and you wind up doing things half-heartedly and without the kind of dedication or commitment that is needed. So I think if I had one piece of advice, it would be selective about what you choose to devote yourself to in terms of time, energy, and money. And the second thing would be to keep the ideals of Rotary have some value in terms of getting people to come in and join the club from different walks of life, so that you're not a club of realtors or a club of lawyers or a club of financial advisors or a club of whatever. Its considerable value was in the fact that there was quite a diversity of people in the room, and that has been its strength for 110 years or however long it's been. Also amazed by the result, what it is that these people working together can accomplish and how much they get done. So if I had to sort of point back on one thing, it would be all of the things that you accomplish over the course of the year. When you sit down to make your submission to the district for the things that you've accomplished over the year, the list is always staggering. It's always, you look at it every year and you think, wow, that's crazy. That's a lot of stuff. And it's no different now. I'm sure the list is even more extensive now than it was then. And that, I think, any president would look back on that and say, wow, that wasn't just me, that was a whole bunch of people doing a lot of things that they were either asked to do or volunteered to do. And you could not have gotten to a list like that without a whole bunch of people putting their backs into it and putting their heads down and getting to work. And that's, I don't know that any president could go away from that job without being astounded by how much gets put in. I think if I was, if I had responsibility for sitting down with a prospective member and saying, so, this is what Rotary is, the first question is always going to be, so, what is it you're looking for? Can I provide, can the club provide, can the Rotary International umbrella provide what it is that people are looking for in terms of, service to their community or service to, the international community. You have to find out what it is that people want, what they're interested in, what they're going to be passionate about. And once you have identified that, then you've got a better chance of directing them or guiding them into the avenues of service that they can be most fulfilled, but also most useful. So if somebody was considering it, I would say, so what are you interested in? What do you like to do? What do you what sort of things excite you or interest you or upset you or annoy you? And then you have a chance to work on those things. Here's how we can direct that. Here's some of the areas where you can be useful or helpful or where you can fit in. I think that club environment can be a little bit intimidating to someone who's new. Those people all seem to know each other. Some of them have known each other for a long, long time. And so the difficult part is in fitting new people into that dynamic and making sure that they are welcomed and make sure that they're given an opportunity to provide service. But most importantly, to feel welcome and comfortable and that takes work. 20 years seems like a long time to someone who's only been with the club for a year or two, and 20 years goes by in a blink for someone who was there in 1993, and next thing you know, it's 20 years later, and you're thinking, wow, we've raised an awful lot of money, millions and millions of dollars. That money has gone to great and good purposes, both in the community and internationally. And Spruce Grove would be a different place but for the efforts of the Rotary Club. And I'm glad it existed, and it exists today, and it's continuing to exist in the future. But I think so is the community of Spruce Grove. Fortunate and grateful.